Yeah, hi everyone. Look, I'm just doing a voiceover on this particular video because we don't have audio. We were actually walking back from doing our preaching on the corner at the National Bank at Burwood. And we're walking back, we'd taken all our sound gear off and we were walking back to the car. And I was walking back as I always do with the sign in my hand, speaking about Jesus. Lisa, my wife, said, look, just wait here, I'll just go up and buy some food up in the food court. So I stood in the centre and waiting for Lisa, and security guy came along and he said, you can't be here. And I said, well, why not? And he said, because you got that sign. And I said, well, look, I'm just waiting for my wife. We're walking through back to the car park. And she's just buying some food, and when she comes down, I'll continue on. Is that okay? And he said, no, you can't be in the centre with that sign. And I said, well, look, it's only a few minutes. She'll be back in a minute, and then I'll continue on to the car. And he said, well, I'm just going to wait and see if she comes back. So he hung around, and then he disappeared inside one of the shops, and he rang his boss, and then 4 or 5 security guys turned up and said the same thing, you must leave. And I said, well, I am leaving. I'm heading for the car park, but I'm just waiting for my wife. She's getting some food, and then we're going to continue on. And he said, no, you've got to go now. You can't have that sign in this shopping centre. And I said, well, really, it's doing no harm. I'm just standing here waiting for my wife, as I've explained to you a few times. And he was very adamant that they were the rules and I had to leave. And I said, well, I am leaving, but I'm not going just yet until my wife comes. He said, if you don't leave, I'll ring the police. And I said, well, you go right ahead. I'll be interested to see what they've got to say. So they rang the police, and the police came, and just the usual thing. I said, well, what have I done wrong, and what's the regulation? And nobody could give me an answer. And so we talked on for a while. And what I really wanted to say was that you've got to use some discretion. These guys, they've got their little rule books. And certainly it might be private property and everything else, but I was not busking. I was not promoting. I was not talking to anybody. I was standing there waiting for my wife, who was up in the food court, to come down so we could continue on our way into the car park. And they were adamant that I was doing the wrong thing and I had to leave. So it all, obviously gets my back up a little bit, because there's no intention to do anything wrong. We weren't preaching, we weren't promoting, we weren't asking for money, we weren't doing anything like that. We just had a sign with Jesus on it. So I can only imagine that people dislike Jesus. That's what it is. And the guy claimed to be a Christian. He said, I'm a Christian. And I said, well, why wouldn't you just let me stand here for 2 minutes when my wife came down, and then let me continue on? But he wouldn't do it. He was just adamant that that's what was going to happen. So I just need to explain that to people, because the audio wasn't on. We had no audio gear on, so there's no audio. But I didn't want to let it go. But rather than put up a thing with rubbish audio on it, I thought I would explain it. And there it is, people. People do not like the name of Jesus. It's just, for no reason, they were just being malicious. So thanks for listening. Talk to you soon. Bye.